Police officers of Reddit, what was your oh crap moment? Just checked onto my shift. As I turned my patrol car on, my radio was in mid-broadcast about an accident just outside the city I work in. I voluntarily checked en route to help out the best I could. While heading there, I was informed that it was actually closer to the next city over but that I would still be the first one there. I was then told it was a head-on collision. I arrived on scene about a minute later. It was in fact a head-on collision. 5 people from one vehicle were not wearing seatbelts. All 5 were fatally injured beyond any measure. There was nothing I could do. A doctor showed up on scene shortly after me. Nothing he could do. I watched 2 adults and 3 children die in front of my eyes. The 6-year-old little girl just stared at me unblinking as she passed. I still get emotional. They were students at our elementary school. I knew them because I routinely go to that school just to see the little kids and give them junior police stickers, take pictures with them and let them play with my gadgets and police car. I went to the memorial service that the school put on for the girls to pay my respects. Their father was there and didn't know who I was or that I was the first one there or what I saw. He was talking to another father, clearly in between denial and anger phases, about how he wished he knew what officer it was on scene so he could kill him for not doing anything, and why didn't he do anything, and blaming me for their deaths. That was really hard to hear. I wish I was a superhero and could have used magic powers to save those poor children. I'm sorry, little ones. You deserve to live your lives. I pulled up on a teen sleeping in a vehicle at the end of a country road. When I ran the license plate, I found out that he was reported as a runaway. The doors on the vehicle were locked, so I knocked on the window to wake him up. Once he woke up and realized what was going on, he shot himself in the mouth with a rifle he had hidden under his blanket. Rough way to start my shift. My husband has been a police officer for over 20 years. One night he was patrolling the downtown area when he noticed a purse someone had left behind. He opened the bag to check for ID and found a turd. Some lady took a big poop in her handbag and left it behind. He'll talk about autopsies and burnt bodies, but that is the one story he would rather forget. Literal oh crap moment. A law professor in Australia spent 20 years as a cop before becoming a lawyer and eventually teaching. In explaining the battered wife syndrome defense to murder, he told a story of a call to a little old lady's house where she had said on the phone that she had killed her husband. Before this incident, he didn't really understand why it existed. Why doesn't the woman just leave? Why doesn't she just go to someone else's house? Professor shows up to the door and is greeted by a little old lady saying, "Come in, would you like some tea?" He goes in and she starts putting some cakes on a tray and pouring tea. He wonders if she's all there. He asked, "So you said that you killed your husband on the phone, would I be able to see him?" She directs him to the living room where the old man was on a lazy boy chair, bottle in hand, and a tomahawk in his skull. Meanwhile, old lady is asking if he takes sugar or milk in his tea. The professor said at this moment he realized why the defense of battered wife existed. The drunk old guy had been beating her for years, controlled all the money and didn't let her have friends. She had nowhere to go even if she left him. So on this day, after saying he was going to beat her if his sports team lost, she took matters into her own hands. He said this was the moment he realized that sometimes there are situations where life doesn't make sense and people take the only way they can see. A suicidal girl was dropped off at the hospital. Myself and my colleague were there, escorting another prisoner from custody. This girl came and spoke to our prisoner. They'd never before, but they were just making idle hospital waiting room chit-chat. The girl vanishes, not bothered, we don't know why she's there, who she is, we just assumed she'd gone somewhere else. After a while our prisoner says, "That girl has been in the toilet a long time. Perhaps she's having a big poo?" We laugh and then realize it had been a while. So I start banging the door, no answer. Door locked? I unscrew the lock and she sat there, wheezing and not super responsive. My colleague goes for help and a nurse comes and unzips her jacket, and she's made a ligature from a sock and she's blue and not breathing. I managed to cut it off, it was on tight, we couldn't get scissors in to cut it, and she's taken through to get checked, now breathing again. My partner goes with her. I'm stood by the door with my prisoner getting air. The whole thing is stressful. This happened in the middle of a busy A&E, ER for you Yanks. People are just looking at me. Next thing I know, a healthcare assistant is running out to me because this girl is now becoming violent and my partner needs help. I can't leave my prisoner and I can't leave my partner to get beat up. I chose to go for my partner. This girl is smashing her head into a wall, kicking, hitting and trying to bite. It took 3 of us to get her calm. I barely managed to get the assistant's shout out before going in. Radio signal is poor to non-existent. Luckily the prisoner sat patiently in the waiting room whilst we dealt with that. They weren't cuffed, they could have ran and there was nothing we could do to stop it. On top of all the stress that day caused, I didn't really have the oh crap moment until I was in my car on the way home, and I realized a girl nearly died 5 feet away from me. I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for the prisoner paying attention to where their new friend went. I'm not a cop, but my younger brother is. On his first night out of field training, so the first night he's not riding with an instructor, him and his equally new partner were heading back to the station at the end of the night around 2 a.m. He's driving down a major street and there are 2 SUVs hauling the other direction. All of a sudden someone leans out the rear window of the second vehicle, and starts firing rounds from a rifle at his car heading opposite direction. Naturally they flip around and give chase, and call it out on the radio. He said it was either the fact that his partner was screaming his head off into the radio, or the fact that it was the 2 rookies getting shot at, but the entire city's police force came down on them in about 2 minutes. They ended up catching both vehicles. Turns out it was some sort of dispute at a bar between the occupants of the SUVs. Vehicle 2 was chasing Vehicle 1. Saw the cops, who had no idea about any of it, coming the other way and decided to take it up a couple notches. Does it count if it was my dad? Mom took me and my siblings to the doctor one day, turned off her cell as per doctor's office policy back then. Fast forward a few hours, we pull up to our house and there's a cop car waiting for us in the driveway, not my dad's. Anyone with family in law enforcement knows having a cop at your door that isn't your loved one is something you never want to experience. Long story short, my dad's flashbang malfunctioned and detonated in his pocket during a call out. He was SWAT. Definitely an oh crap moment for him and everyone in the back of that van. He very nearly bled out and they couldn't get a hold of my mom. She swears the whole department was in that waiting room when we got there. And my dad lived to tell the tale. Love him. As a rookie I was responding to an alarm at a restaurant that was supposed to be haunted by a woman. The first officer that arrived was an older officer that didn't do much and didn't ever get excited on the radio. As soon as he arrived, he asked for a second unit in a high-pitched tone. As I pulled in, he had his shotgun out and he was leaned up over his hood. My first thought was oh crap, someone is breaking in. When I ran up to him and asked what up, all he said was as he pulled up and his lights hit the building, a woman jumped off the roof and disappeared. He was clearly shook. Me and another officer checked the building and found no evidence that someone had been there. It made an impression on me and I never went back to the restaurant at night without another officer. My older brother is a cop. He got a call about a suicidal teenager behind a school with a knife. He rolled up to the spot and when the kid noticed him, he immediately started hacking at his own neck with the knife. My brother sprints over to him and tases him. Saved the kid's life. It's all on body cam. Got a call for an emotionally disturbed person. Arrive on scene, and a 350 pounds man built like an NFL lineman, is passed out on the floor face down. His wife says he suffers from PTSD from the first Iraq War and that he was an Army Ranger. He had been drinking heavily. His son is on scene and about 16 years old. The man begins to wake up and proceeds to smash his forehead into the ground, repeatedly. We call for an ambulance. A small pool of blood begins to form on the floor. The wife grabs a rag and goes to wipe it up when this guy's head jerks up real quick, his face contorted in rage. He grabs the wife by the neck and throws her clear across the room onto the couch. We immediately jump on him but he is preternaturally strong. There are 4 of us and we are each fighting one limb. The kid jumps in and helps us get 2 sets of cuffs on him, because one set was not wide enough to connect his wrists behind his back. I ride in the ambulance to the hospital with him, while he glares at me angrily reciting his military registration number and telling me I won't get any information out of him, and that I'm a towel head. I don't remotely look like I'm from the region. The entire ride I hope that he doesn't break out of the cuffs. If I'm being honest, I'm not sure we would have gained control of him if the kid hadn't helped. Ex-cop from NSW Australian here. A guy once died in a motorcycle accident. We went to deliver the death message to his girlfriend. After reading the collision report, the truck driver said, he just pulled straight in front of him like a deliberate suicide. She was not answering, so we forced entry. The shelves of the fridge were on the kitchen floor. Opening the fridge, we discovered multiple pillowcases with her cut-up body inside. That was certainly an oh crap moment. Not me, but my friend is a cop. He pulled up to accident scene once involving a motorcycle. Gets out of his car, starts walking over and sees the guy's helmet. Figures he'll be nice and bring it over to the guy. Well, as it turns out, the guy was still in the helmet. Responded to a domestic, and when I showed up, I heard a lot of yelling and banging. A friend of the family was standing outside screaming for help. I saw my backup down the block, so I decided to run in on my own, figuring he'd be right behind me. I saw two older siblings, brother and sister, practically choking each other out, while a younger sister tried to jump over the older sister and stab the brother with a knife. I didn't see the knife until I was right next to them, and when I did see it, my first reaction was to grab the younger sister by the wrist, slam her arm into the wall to knock the knife out and throw her to the ground. I then held her with my left hand as I elbowed the big sister in the face, to separate her from the brother. The brother then came at me, and I ended up punching him in the sternum, which sent him to the ground. He landed next to the knife and looked at it as though he was gonna grab it. I drew down on him, and told him not to move. All four of us then looked each other in silence, for what felt like a minute, before that officer who was down the block ran in. First words out of his mouth were, "I ran into the wrong apartment." It was a solid, oh crap moment, up until then though. So why were they trying to kill each other? Monopoly. What's the weirdest/scariest thing you've ever seen when at somebody else's house? Well, I was about 10 years old, and after school I went back to a friend's apartment, to play some games and do some sort of school project or homework. It was a while ago and I don't remember exactly. His mom made some snacks for us, and we were playing something, when his dad got home. He started shouting really bad words towards the mother and started to beat the crap out of her for forgetting to put his lunch into his work bag. This was for like 6 to 7 minutes, the mom had blood on her face, crying and stuff. Then he stopped, came to us with a smile on his face, kissed his son and simply went to take a shower and do stuff around the house. I asked my friend what happened, and he said that's something normal for them, but usually the mother fights back and sometimes she even won. The mom was like 10 centimeters taller than the father and quite a big lady. Told my parents about it and I was not allowed to go back there, and if I wanted to hang out with my friend, we would do it at my place. The sad thing is the next day my friend asked me why was I scared, because that's how every family solves its problems, and he was shocked when I told him my mom would get mad at my dad even when he used a bad word around me and my brother, and I never saw my parents fight or even lay a finger on each other. He did not believe me and called me a liar. We remained friends for a few more years, until he started hanging with some super shady people. Now he is in jail for armed robbery, I think, or something like that. The weirdest was when I was visiting an old high school friend a few years ago. She had married this big a-hole and had 2 kids back to back. When you walked into their trailer it looked like they had this enormous flat screen TV that almost took up the whole living room wall. But when you walked down the hallway past the little girl's room, the back of the TV was sticking out into the girl's bedroom. It was one of those old obsolete TVs. They had cut a hole in the wall to make it look like a flat screen. There was only enough room for both of their baby beds on either side of the back of the TV. I'll never forget that. Who does that? My wife and I were touring a home we were considering buying. Old, vacant a while, fixer-upper, but lots of potential. Couldn't get around a smell that followed through the house. Got upstairs and the smell was worse. Opened up a bedroom door and there were strategically placed human turd piles all over the floor, filling the room. Driest and oldest in the far corner. Relatively fresh closer to the door. We did not buy the house. My mom used to be a mental health advocate. Basically, she would take people with severe mental illnesses to and from doctor's appointments, court dates, bail them out when they got arrested, etc. Well, one of her clients would poop in his windowsill and let it dry, then smoke it like crack. He said it gave him the strength he needed to fight the demons at night. He was the same one who would climb on top of his 3-story apartment building during thunderstorms, to stop the moon and sun from fighting. Because the angels told him that was his job. He was never a danger to anyone else and was actually very nice. Just severely schizophrenic. I'll go with weirdest. Now, my experiences in life might be slightly different than your average person. I worked for a plumbing company in Baldwin Park, California for a while, and during that time probably visited 250 homes roughly. So I've definitely been in more houses than not. We ran a special ad saying, "We'll clear any drain for $79.99, so naturally we were very busy. Okay, bear with me here, there will be a TLDR at the bottom. So, we're in the van and the tablet dings, that means we have a new service request. We get the address. It's down by the beach in Laguna Niguel. At this point I'm already rolling my eyes in the passenger seat because that's on the far end of our operating zone. It's only a drain call, so no commission really, and rich people are notoriously hard to work for in my industry. We pull into the gated community and drive up to the house. This house is nice. I feel like calling it a house is a disservice. This is a mansion. I mean, white Doric columns on each side of the door, lawn manicured perfectly, they even had a effing fountain. Okay. We knock on the front door and for about 4 minutes no one answered. Doesn't seem like a long time, but to be knocking on a door that's right where people shrug and say, "Guess no one's home." Well, as we were about to walk back, a very short, very old man unlatches the door and greets us. At this point everything seems okay. He's very old. Maybe 80 to 85, but still walking unassisted. He's wearing country club kinda stuff. White polo, white shorts and loafers and nice jewelry. But with snow white hair and liver spots and a general oldness to him. Anyway, so we head on in. There's marble floors, big fake plants, a small bronze bust of someone I don't recognize, all kinds of nice things in the foyer. But it seems like a white room that's never actually lived in and only used for company, which I'm guessing they never had. Again, everything seems normal here. Once we walk further into the home, I start noticing the smell. Anyone reading this that's worked in a restaurant, the smell was similar to the drains in the dish pit area. Food and moisture and wet floor smell that's been sitting for a while. We got to the kitchen where the drain problem was. Dude! The drain and the sink had backed up in their home. Because of that they had stopped doing dishes for a while, which was what the man said. No, these people stopped doing dishes 90 days ago at least. The 2 sink basins were stacked with dirty plates. The counters on either side were stacked with dirty plates. Their cabinets were empty because they had used all available dishes, and after those were all gone then they used Tupperware containers. Once those were all gone, they bought paper plates and were stuffing those into a garbage bag by the door. There were ants everywhere. Again, I can't emphasize this enough. There were so many fingants everywhere I thought the counters were a different color than they were. Truly a staggering number of ants. Swarming this huge stack of rotten food and plates and trash. The counters looked alive. Like a fuzzy countertop that moved. I mean, to think these people were living in this house is beyond me. They had ants all over the floor, crawling in the windows above the sink and even in the carpet in the living room. Me and my boss look at each other in disbelief. We spoke to them and respectfully declined and had them follow up with the owner of the company. Basically, the guy was very wealthy early on in life. Bought the house and married. His wife was about 10 to 15 years his junior, but she was completely senile. The entire time we were in the kitchen she was by the glass doors and sat at the breakfast table staring into space. The man himself was probably on the edge of dementia, since speaking to him was difficult because he would get off topic and completely forget what we were speaking about. Even though we're holding plumbing equipment, both wearing Reuter shirts. It was a very sad situation, realizing that even though they retired with all this money it does them no good. They were in serious need of a caretaker or live-in nurse. They could obviously afford it, but I'm not sure why that wasn't happening. But anyways, I've never been so taken back walking into someone's home like that. It felt like a horror movie. TLDR. Went to rich people's mansion for plumbing job. Mansion was infested and swarming with bugs. They photoshopped themselves into pictures of them on vacation like boats and stuff and put them in picture frames. The biggest one was them photoshopped into a photo with Obama that they ironed onto the wall. It was probably 5 by 5 feet. I was about 10 and staying with a friend. We were completely asleep when her mom and dad came in and woke us up and calmly said we were all going outside now. It was summer, so it wasn't too cold or anything. We all went outside, her 3 older teenage siblings and her parents and the 2 of us, but it was the middle of the night, so it was extremely strange. Then the bomb squad showed up. Turns out, there was a grenade with the pin still in it from World War II in their garage. My friend's dad would stay up super late cleaning and organizing his late father's belongings when he came across it one night. My parents ended up coming to pick me up a short time later and the bomb squad took the grenade, I believe. I'm an EMT. From time to time we go out with the fire department or PD for wellness checks. On one such call we arrived at a home of an elderly man whose family had sent heard from him in a week. Knock on the door, peek through the windows, don't see anything because the windows are covered. The family tells us where to find the spare key, so we open the door and are greeted with the most horrid smell ever. Instantly everyone knows he's dead and has been cooking for a bit in here. We move in and see this is a hoarder house. Just like the shows, there are piles of garbage, junk and God knows what else in that house. There were rats the size of small cats scampering around us as we looked for the guy. One of the firefighters found him wedged between the bed and wall covered in junk. His toes had been gnawed on by the rats. As the firefighter was clearing the stuff off the body, his eye suddenly pops open and he grabs the firefighter by the hand, scaring the absolute piss out of all of us. We rushed him to the hospital where he died a few weeks later. From what a nurse told us, he fell while getting out of bed and broke his hip. While trying to get himself up, he got buried under a pile of junk until we found him. So, I'm 13, at a new school, and walking home after school. A kid I didn't know kinda joins me and says after a few minutes, "Hey, here's my home, wanna come in?" Yeah, okay. The house was the biggest mess I've ever seen. I guess 3 or 4 adults and 4 or 5 kids lived there and they never cleaned up. There was trash everywhere, paper bags, fast food containers, soda cups and bottles. My new friend asked if I wanted a glass of water and we went into the kitchen. His older sister was there and sweeping a pile of trash out the open back door into the backyard, which had trash and junk everywhere, junk washing machines, car parts, refrigerators. The kitchen counters were stacked 2 feet deep in dirty dishes and pots and pans. The kid grabbed a dirty glass and filled it with water. I drank it and didn't die. In a corner of the kitchen was a 50-pound bag of dry dog food, open. "Oh nice, you have a dog, huh?" New friend grins and says, "Oh no, we don't have a dog." I thought about that for a minute and told him I'd better go home now, see you later. After that I took a different way home after school. Well, this will probably be burled. But one time a girl I knew said she had a skeleton in her closet. I laughed being drunk and figured she was talking figuratively and about to tell me a story. Nope, she took me to her closet and sure enough there was a skeleton hanging in it, staring back at me. Real skeletons look like real damn skeletons, not the stuff you see in classrooms. Discolored bones and weight to the thing. So, her grandfather was a doctor, and I gather if you donate your body to science there is not a lot of paperwork. So, you can end up as a joke ornament. Now I admire her for the dedication towards the joke. However, the thought of sleeping in a room with a dead person in your closet still freaks me out. A decorative bowl on the table next to the couch absolutely filled with fingernail and toenail clippings. We know it's you, Yoshikage Kira, you can't run forever. I was looking for this Lamau.